gas assets held in trusts. The first was none other than Abu Dhabi Energy Company. Here we have a Middle Eastern oil company, the state owned by the state of Abu Dhabi, coming in and buying this dollar of income for 68.5 cents and hauling all that money out of this country. And the result will be they'll pay no taxes in this country, because there are many ways to structure deals by foreigners involving trusts that totally alleviate the payment of any taxes in this country whatsoever. And as finance minister, I think I shouldn't have to educate you on that. It's pretty obvious. And the other large transaction, that was a $5 billion hauling off of energy assets from broad Canadian ownership into the hands of a state-owned Middle Eastern oil company. The other one was more recent, was the state-owned oil company of Korean National Oil Company. Here's Koreans coming in, buying Harvest Energy for $4 billion, and stealing it in effect from Canadians at 68 cents in the dollar, and scooping the difference in the form of a profit. They too won't pay any taxes in this country. So you've actually, as a result of that type of transaction, disenfranchised the ownership of key Canadian assets in the hands of Canadians who were paying taxes you were simply unwilling to acknowledge in your fraudulent tax analysis. And now they've been shifted into other hands. That triggers a massive loss of investment capital to Canadians and who have invested in these trusts, which is a subset of Canadians, but then produced an ongoing loss of taxes to all Canadian taxpayers in perpetuity. And to date, the trusts have actually triggered about a $1 billion annual loss in taxes, a real loss of tax, hard currency, leaving the tax base of Canada each and every year going forward, at the same time that you're triggering losses in the hands of investors and taking away investment options from them. The role of government isn't to take options away from people, it's to preserve options and to expand the suite of options available to them. But you have a different philosophy. You want to take options away, and you do it using means that are false and fraudulent. And so here we are, 12 months to go, and there's still 75% of trusts out there. You've got this drop-off date that you arbitrarily set a year's time from now. All these trusts are going to get taken over one way or the other, and there'll be a massive loss of taxes that might potentially reach as high as $7 billion a year. And to do what? To address a tax leakage that you, in your most wildest dreams, you were holding out to the Canadian public was what, $500 million a year? And it was false. It was actually zero. But even take your most absurd, outlandish representation of leakage, you took what you professed was a $500 million a year tax leakage problem, and now 3 years later, or in a total of 4 years' time, you've turned that into a real $7.5 billion ongoing annual loss of taxes. I mean, you couldn't conceive of a more adverse reverse outcome from such an absurd policy if you tried. So you've actually achieved the polar opposite results of what you were saying you wanted to do. It, by definition, doesn't get worse than that. But then there are all the other negative consequences, because at the same time as we're losing taxes rather than preserving taxes, you've taken away investment options from Canadians, as I said before. What are these people going to do who don't have pensions like you, your gold-plated pension plan? You're well taken care of, but 75% of Canadians are not. I think now that we've had this global financial meltdown, we've all witnessed what it means and maybe recalibrated our priorities and concerns about what it means to be providing for retirement income. Pension issues are a huge issue. You've created a $35 billion loss in Canadians' retirement savings. That's probably the economic equivalent of you blowing up, I don't know, 100,000 jobs. Imagine those headlines. Stephen Harper kills 100,000 jobs. You know, hey, it could be bigger. I don't know. You do the math. We never seem to see any math from you people. In any event, everything you've done here on this thing has been completely false, misleading, starting off with your misleading promise to never do what you then did 9 months later. The false premise on which you rationalized that reversal, that's a total lie. You've concocted numbers that have no foundation to them whatsoever. And don't take my word for it. Don't take HLB Decision Economics' word for it, even though they are the definitive source of information. Talk to BMO Capital Markets. Talk to PricewaterhouseCoopers. Ask RBC Capital Markets if there's tax leakage. And they'll tell you there's no such thing as tax leakage. Ask Deloitte. They'll tell you, they'll confirm what I'm saying about the non-existence of tax leakage now actually being a real tax leakage as a result of all these takeovers. And so are we going to sit back here and allow your absurd policy to manifest itself in its final ridiculous outcome? Or are we as Canadians going to enforce upon you the requirement that you prove this policy and justify your actions to either then carry on the way things are if in fact what you're saying is true, or to cease and desist from doing what you're doing if in fact it's false? And the obligation to prove something shouldn't be on my shoulders as a Canadian citizen, even though I'm quite capable of doing it. That's your job. That's why we elect you. That's why we pay you. That is why it's incumbent on you to prove this case. And in the words of Diane Francis, the only journalist in this country who actually has some integrity and backbone, said in a piece that she wrote, prove the case or drop the tax. And that's where we're at right now. Here it is. It's January 2010. You've prorogued Parliament for 2 months. You say you want to consult with Canadians. You profess to be concerned about pensions. I mean, those are all words. They never have any substance. But I'm here to tell you, Stephen Harper, Jim Flaherty, whomever might be listening, that it is time that you prove this case or drop this tax, because you've done something that is of enormous damage to every Canadian taxpayer in this country. You have created a situation where we're losing $1 billion a year as it is from your absurd mistake, a number that's going to multiply sevenfold in short order. I don't know where you're going to find $7 billion a year from. That's like a 1% increase in GST. Are you going to take the GST up to 6% to make up for this mistake? Where are you going to find this money from? Cut programs? Like, where's it coming from? You know, taxation and spending is a zero-sum game. And you've just hauled off with $7 billion potentially and handed it in effect to foreigners who not only now it results in a loss of tax bases, but I mean, you know, you're selling this country out to foreigners. And how the NDP ever got duped into supporting this is beyond me. It probably had a lot to do with that Judy Wasylycias-Leis. I mean, here the NDP have a finance critic whose qualifications are she's a labor organizer. I mean, you know, I don't profess to, I'd be a very good labor organizer, but nor should she profess she knows anything about finance, because she proved definitively that she does not. And she, along with the NDP party, obviously don't live up to their middle name of Democratic, because more like duped. Where is it in anyone's book on democracy that you pass policies based on outright lies, or that you somehow accept blacked out documents of proof, or you stand in the way of public hearings when people attempt to find out the truth? I mean, that's not democratic. That's just running away from a problem that you've created. And the thing of it is, you know, I don't know what's with you people.